Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku reclaimed the forgotten lineage. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The dream was always the same. It did not begin with images, but with heat. It was a heat so profound, so absolute, that it didn't burn, it unmade. It felt like standing in the heart of a forge the size of a mountain, where the air itself was heavy with the taste of ozone and melting iron. Then came the ash. It fell like gray snow, blanketing a ruined landscape that Izuku Midoriya didn't recognize. There were no skyscrapers, no paved roads, no neon signs flickering in the twilight. There were only stone pillars, shattered and blackened, and the sky was a bruised purple, choked with smoke. In the center of the devastation stood a figure. Izuku could never see the face. The figure was clad in armor that seemed woven from light itself, plates of shifting, molten gold that pulsed with a heartbeat rhythm. The warrior stood atop a pile of rubble, a singular point of radiance in a dying world. Shadows, viscous and hungry, writhed at the base of the rubble, trying to climb, trying to snuff out the light. The warrior raised a hand. There was no desperation in the movement, only an ancient, weary obligation. A sphere of white fire materialized in the palm, brighter than the sun, heavier than a planet. "The torch is not given," a voice echoed, sounding like it came from inside Izuku's own marrow. "It is kindled." The sphere detonated. The light washed over Izuku, blinding, searing, terrifying, and feeling like home. Izuku gasped, bolting upright in his bed. His sheets were soaked with sweat. His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird, frantic to escape. The digital clock on his bedside table blinked 6 a.m., the red numbers mocking his panic. He sat there for a long time, his hands trembling as he gripped the duvet. The room was cool, the air conditioning humming softly, but his skin felt feverish. He looked at his hands, plain, scarred from nervous scratching, corkless hands. He turned them over, half expecting to see gold light leaking from the pores, but there was nothing. Just pale skin and the faint green veins of a boy who was nothing special. "Just a dream," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Just a stupid dream." He swung his legs out of bed. The All Might posters plastered on every inch of his walls smiled down at him. The symbol of peace. The man who saved everyone with a smile. The man who possessed power beyond measure. Izuku looked at the poster nearest his door. All Might in his Silver Age costume, striking a pose. The hero looked invincible. He looked like he belonged to the sun. Izuku looked in the mirror. He looked like he belonged to the dirt. "Time for school," he muttered, pushing the memory of the Golden Warrior into the back of his mind, where he buried all the other things that hurt too much to look at. Musudiful was sweltering. It was the kind of humid, oppressive heat that stuck your shirt to your back and made the air shimmer above the asphalt. For most people, it was miserable. For Izuku, strangely, the heat felt comfortable. While his classmates fanned themselves and complained about the broken AC in the classroom, Izuku felt a strange hum in his chest, as if his metabolism was purring in response to the solar radiation. But the comfort of the weather did nothing to dampen the misery of Alderete Junior High. "So," the teacher's voice droned, cutting through the humidity. "As third-year students, it's time to think seriously about your futures and what you want to do with your lives." He held up a stack of printouts. "I could pass out these career aptitude tests." He tossed them into the air, a dramatic flair that Izuku loathed. "But why bother? I know you all want to go into the hero track." The class erupted. Quirks flared everywhere, eyes popping out, fingers turning into hoses, minor telekinesis lifting pencils. It was a carnival of biological miracles. Everyone was special. Everyone had a future. Everyone except one. Izuku kept his head down, staring at his notebook. Hero analysis for the future, number 13. He shrank into his shoulders, trying to make himself as small as possible. If he didn't move, if he didn't breathe, maybe the universe would forget he existed for just 5 minutes. Yes, you've all got wonderful quirks," the teacher said, waving a hand. "But remember, using powers in school is against regulations." "Hey, teach!" The voice was rough, arrogant, and laced with the crackle of nitroglycerin. Katsuki Bakugo leaned back in his chair, feet on his desk, a grin splitting his face. Don't lump me in with these losers. I'm not gonna be stuck at the bottom with the rest of these rejects. I'm the real deal, the class jeered, but Bakugo just laughed, small explosions popping in his palms. Bring it on, extras! I'll take you all on. Ah, Bakugo, the teacher noted, looking at his clipboard. You're aiming for Yue High, aren't you? The silence that followed was heavy. Yue. The impossible fortress. The breeding ground of legends. That's right. Bakugo leaped onto his desk. I aced the mock exams. I'm the only one here with the stuff to make it. I'm gonna surpass All Might and become the top hero. My name will be etched on the list of top earners. Oh, the teacher said, oblivious to the atmosphere he was about to create. That reminds me. Midoriya, you wanted to go to UA too, didn't you? Time stopped. Izuku felt the blood drain from his face. The hum in his chest, that comforting warmth, suddenly spiked into a sharp, painful throb. The class froze. Then, they exploded into laughter. Midoriya? No way. You can't get into the hero course just by studying. They got rid of the rule. But there's never been a quirkless hero. Izuku stood up, his hands shaking. They got rid of that rule. There's no precedent, but, boom. Bakugo was there in an instant. His palms slammed onto Izuku's desk, the explosion blasting Izuku backward onto the floor. The smell of burnt wood and smoke filled the air. Hey, Deku! Bakugo loomed over him, smoke curling from his palms. His red eyes were manic. You're worse than the rejects. You're quirkless. You're nothing. You think you can rub shoulders with me? No. Wait, Kaken. Izuku scrambled back against the wall, terror seizing his throat. I'm not trying to compete with you. I swear. It's been my dream since I was little. And, well, I won't know unless I try. Try? Bakugo sneered. Try what? Taking the entrance exam just to die. What can you do? The class laughed again. It was a wall of sound, a crushing weight of societal rejection. Izuku looked up at them, at the faces distorted by mockery. For a second, just a split second, a flash of the dream superimposed itself over reality. He saw the golden warrior standing against the dark. But he wasn't the warrior. He was the rebel. The day didn't get better. The confrontation behind the school building was routine. Bakugo snatched the notebook. He burned it. He tossed it out the window. Izuku stood there, paralyzed. He wanted to scream. He wanted to hit him. He wanted something to happen. But his body remained static, locked in the habit of fear. You know, Bakugo said, pausing at the door, his lackeys snickering behind him. There is one way to become a hero. Izuku looked up, hope, pathetic, desperate hope, flaring in his chest. Take a swan dive off the roof of the building, Bakugo said, his voice cold and flat. And pray you'll be born with a quirk in the next life. The words hit Izuku like a physical blow. Bakugo left. The room was empty. Izuku stood there, his fists clenched at his sides. He should have been crying. He usually cried. But this time, the tears didn't come. Instead, that heat in his chest, the one that usually felt like a gentle hum, began to burn. It felt like heartburn, acidic and rising. Born with a quirk in the next life. Idiot, Izuku whispered, his voice trembling with a rage he didn't know how to process. If I actually jumped, that would be murder, you know. He walked out of the school, retrieved his charred notebook from the koi pond. Stupid fish, he muttered, and began the long walk home. The heat of the day had intensified. The sun was dipping lower, casting long, orange shadows. Izuku walked through the underpass, the darkness of the tunnel offering a brief respite from the glare. He flipped through the soggy pages of his notebook. Hero analysis. It felt like a joke now. A diary of a delusion. Maybe I should give up, he whispered to the damp concrete walls. Mom, she never believed me either. I'm sorry, Izuku. That's all she said. He stopped walking. A strange sensation prickled the back of his neck. The air in the tunnel suddenly felt heavier, charged with static. The hum in his chest spiked again, warning him. Move, his instinct screamed. He turned around. Fluid. Green, viscous, smelling of rot and sewage. It surged out of the manhole cover, rising like a tidal wave of filth. Eyes, huge, yellow, and manic, floated in the slime, a medium-sized invisibility cloak. The mask gurgled. Izuku froze. His legs, usually so quick to run, were leaden. The sludge lunged. It hit him before he could scream. The fluid forced its way into his mouth, his nose, filling his throat. He clawed at the liquid, but his fingers passed through it like water. "Don't worry," the villain whispered, his voice vibrating through the slime directly into Izuku's skull. "I'm just going to take over your body. It'll only hurt for about 45 seconds. Then it'll all be over." "I'm dying," Izuku thought. The panic was white-hot. "I'm drowning on dry land." No. No, not like this. He couldn't breathe. His vision began to spot with black. He thrashed, kicking his legs, but the villain was too strong, too amorphous. "Help me. Someone. Anyone." His chest burned. Not from the lack of oxygen, but from something else. That heat. That deep, ancient furnace in his DNA. It was waking up. As the darkness encroached, the golden light from his dream flickered in his mind's eye. The torches kindled. Just as Izuku felt a scream building in his soul, a scream that felt like it would tear his throat apart. A clang echoed through the tunnel. The manhole cover flew into the air. "Have no fear!" The voice was booming, heroic, and familiar. "For I am here." A massive figure stood silhouetted against the light of the tunnel entrance. All Might. With a single blur of motion, the hero unleashed a punch. The wind pressure alone was like a hurricane. Texas. Smash! The air pressure blasted the sludge apart. The villain shrieked as he was scattered against the concrete walls. Izuku was released, gasping, coughing up fluid, falling to his hands and knees. He looked up, vision blurry, to see the towering form of the number one hero. "You okay, kid?" All Might asked, his grin blinding. Izuku tried to speak, but the world tilted on its axis. The heat in his chest subsided, retreating back into dormancy, frightened away by the overwhelming presence of One for All. All Might. And then, everything went black. When he woke up, he was being slapped. Gently, but repeatedly. Hey! Hey! Wake up! Izuku snapped his eyes open. All Might was leaning over him, face too close. "Oh, thank goodness." The hero laughed, straightening up. "You're okay. Excellent. I apologize for getting you caught up in my justice ing. Usually, I'm more careful about keeping bystanders safe while I detain the bad guys." Izuku scrambled back, his brain short-circuiting. It was him. It was actually him. I. Izuku flailed. "Autograph. I need a." He grabbed his notebook. It was already signed. A massive signature across 2 pages. "Thank you?" Izuku bowed so hard his forehead nearly cracked the pavement. "It'll be a family heirloom. I'll treasure it." "Okay." All Might gave a thumbs up. "Well, I've got to get this guy to the police. See you on the flip side." He patted the soda bottles in his cargo pocket, where the sludge villain was trapped. He turned to launch himself into the sky. "Wait." Izuku reached out. I have to ask you something." "No time, Fanba." All Might jumped. Izuku didn't think. He just moved. He grabbed onto All Might's leg as he took off. The wind whipped at his face, pulling his cheeks back. They were hundreds of feet in the air instantly. "Hey! What are you doing? Let go!" "I love my fans, but this is too much," All Might yelled, trying to shake him off. "If I let go now, I'll die." Izuku screamed. "Oh. Good point." They landed on a rooftop a few moments later. Izuku collapsed, gasping for air, his legs turning to jelly. "That was reckless," All Might chastised him. "Bang on the door, someone will let you in." "I have to go." "Wait." Izuku scrambled up. "Please. Just one question." All Might stopped. Smoke was beginning to waft from his body. He seemed impatient, almost desperate. Izuku clenched his fists. This was it. The moment of truth. I have no quirk," Izuku started, staring at the ground. "I've been bullied my whole life because of it. Everyone says I'm useless. They say I should give up." He looked up, tears stinging his eyes. But I want to save people. I want to be like you. Can I, even without a quirk, can I still be a hero? The silence stretched. The wind howled over the edge of the building. Izuku waited. He waited for the reassurance. He waited for the symbol of peace to say, yes, young man. Anyone can be a hero. Instead, there was a hiss of steam. Pro-heroes are always risking their lives. All Might's voice was different. Deeper. Weaker. Some villains just can't be beaten without powers. The smoke cleared. Standing there wasn't the muscular giant. It was a skeleton of a man. Gaunt, sharp-angled, with hollow eyes and sunken cheeks. Izuku screamed. An imposter? You're so skinny. I am All Might, the man sighed, blood trickling from his mouth as he sat down heavily. He lifted his shirt. Izuku gasped. The scar was horrific. A massive, spiraling crater of purple, jagged tissue covered half his torso. It looked like he had been caved in. Pretty gross, right? All Might said. I got this 5 years ago. My respiratory system is shot. My stomach was removed. I can only do hero work for about 3 hours a day. 5 years ago, was that toxic chainsaw? No, All Might's eyes darkened. This was a fight the public doesn't know about. I kept it under wraps. The symbol of peace cannot be daunted by injury. I smiled to show the pressure of heroes and to trick the fear inside of me. He looked at Izuku. The gaze was kind, but devastatingly firm. Pros are always risking their lives. Dealing with villains like the one today, without power, you're a liability. You can't save anyone if you're dead. The words cut deeper than any explosion Bakugo had ever thrown. I cannot simply say yes. You can be a police officer. They get mocked, but it's a fine profession. All Might stood up, walking toward the door to the stairwell. It's not wrong to dream, young man, he said softly, not looking back. But you have to see reality for what it is. The door clicked shut. Izuku was alone on the roof. The sun was setting now. The sky was turning a bruised purple, just like in his dream. See reality. Izuku whispered. His legs gave out. He fell to his knees, his hands gripping the gravel of the roof. The notebook lay beside him. The autograph mocked him. No. The word echoed in the empty space. You're useless, Deku. Take a swan dive. You have to see reality. Izuku curled into himself. He felt cold. For the first time all day, that comforting heat in his chest was gone. It had been extinguished. He felt hollowed out, like a lantern with no flame. I tried, he sobbed into the gravel. Mom. I really tried. He didn't know how long he stayed on the roof. Minutes? Hours? Eventually, the sound of explosions snapped him out of his trance. He stood up, wiping his face. His eyes felt raw. He walked to the edge of the roof and looked down toward the shopping district. Smoke was rising. Massive, black plumes. Villain attack, he muttered. Habit took over. I should go see, take notes. He stopped himself. Why? He laughed, a dry, cracking sound. What's the point? But his feet moved anyway. Maybe he just wanted to see a hero actually do their job. Maybe he wanted to see someone save the day, just to remind himself that safety existed, even if he couldn't provide it. He walked down the stairs. He walked through the streets. He felt like a ghost. When he arrived at the Tatooine shopping district, it was chaos. Police had cordoned off the area. Fire was everywhere. The heat was intense, far hotter than the weather. Izuku pushed through the crowd, not really caring if he was shoved back. He reached the front line. His heart stopped. It was the sludge villain. How? Izuku's mind raced. All Might caught him. Unless he dropped him. When I grabbed his leg, guilt crashed into him like a freight train. It's my fault. The heroes were standing around, doing nothing. Death Arms. Kamui Woods. Empty Lady. They were all making excuses. I can't get close. My quirk isn't suitable. We have to wait for someone with the right quirk. Wait. Izuku thought, horror dawning on him. You're heroes. You don't wait. Then, he saw it. In the middle of the sludge, a face was gasping for air. Explosions were popping, muffled and weak. Red eyes met green. Kaken. Bakugo looked terrified. For the first time in their lives, the arrogance was gone. He looked like a victim. He looked like he was dying. Someone save him! Izuku mentally screamed. All Might! Where are you? He looked around. No All Might. Just the crowd. Just the paralyzing fear. And then, the heat returned. It didn't come back as a hum this time. It came back as a roar. It started in his stomach, a nuclear reaction triggering in his gut. It shot through his veins, hotter than fire, sharper than electricity. It felt like his blood was turning into light. Don't look at me, the voice in his head whispered. Don't look away. The line between the dream and reality shattered. Izuku didn't think. He didn't weigh the pros and cons. He didn't remember that he was quirkless. He just ran. Hey! Stop! You'll get yourself killed! The heroes shouted. Izuku didn't hear them. The world narrowed to a tunnel. At the end of the tunnel was Bakugo. Deku? Bakugo choked out. Izuku sprinted, his sneakers slapping against the pavement. He wound up his arm. He remembered his notes. Aim for the eyes. He threw his backpack with everything he had. It flew true, the corner striking the fluid eye of the villain. Grah! The sludge recoiled. For a second, Bakugo's mouth was free. What the hell are you doing here? I don't know! Izuku screamed, his voice raw, tears streaming down his face again. My legs moved on their own. He clawed at the sludge. He tried to pull Bakugo out. But the villain recovered too quickly. You again! The sludge roared. I'll kill you this time. A massive tendril of sludge swung down like a hammer. Izuku flinched. He waited for the impact. He waited for death. No, a voice said. Not All Might's voice. Not his mother's. It was ancient. It sounded like the tectonic plates shifting. It sounded like a star being born. Awaken. Time seemed to slow to a crawl. Izuku felt a snap deep inside his chest. Like a dam breaking. Like a chain shattering. The heat that had been building inside him didn't just burn him anymore. It flowed out. His eyes, usually a soft emerald green, ignited. The iris shifted, flooding with a molten, glowing gold. The pupils contracted into vertical slits of white light. The air around Izuku warped. The temperature in the alleyway spiked by 100 degrees in a millisecond. The sludge tendril didn't hit him. It hit a wall of pressure. Doom. A sound like a thunderclap erupted from Izuku's body. It wasn't a sonic boom. It was a photonic displacement. A sphere of blinding white light exploded outward from Izuku's skin. What? The sludge villain shrieked. The sludge didn't just get pushed back, it boiled. The liquid evaporated instantly where the light touched it, turning into thick, foul steam. The villain screamed as his mass was atomized, the sheer thermal energy forcing him to release Bakugo. The shockwave hit the windows of the shopping district. Glass shattered for 3 blocks. Cars' alarms blared. The pro-heroes were knocked off their feet, shielding their eyes from the sudden, searing brilliance that turned the twilight into high noon. Bakugo was thrown backward, tumbling across the pavement, smoking slightly but unharmed. Izuku stood in the center of the crater. He wasn't conscious. Not really. His mind was blank, white static. His body was acting on a genetic imperative that had been dormant for 3 generations. His skin was glowing. Faint, geometric lines of light traced themselves across his arms and neck, circuitry of the soul. The ground beneath his feet turned to glass. The sludge villain, reduced to a fraction of his size and terrified beyond comprehension, tried to reform. What are you? Izuku turned his head. The movement was robotic, terrifyingly precise. His golden eyes locked onto the villain. He raised his right hand. The air around his fingers distorted. Light bent, gravitated, and condensed into a small, unstable orb in his palm. It hummed with a sound that made teeth ache. He was about to fire. He was about to erase the villain from existence. Young Midoriya! A massive hand grabbed his shoulder. The contact broke the trance. The light died instantly. The geometric lines faded. The golden eyes rolled back into his head. Izuku collapsed, his body limp, steam rising from his skin as if he had just stepped out of a sauna. All Might stood there, in his muscle form, looking at the boy. He had arrived a second too late to save him, but just in time to stop him from killing. The symbol of peace looked around at the devastation. The shattered windows. The melted asphalt. The terrified silence of the crowd. He looked down at his own hand, where he had touched the boy. His glove was singed. What? All Might whispered, his signature smile faltering for the first time in years. What was that? 1 hour later, the police station was chaotic. Izuku sat on a bench in the back, wrapped in a shock blanket. He was shivering, despite the lingering heat in his blood. His memories were fragmented. He remembered running. He remembered the fear. Then, a white light. And then waking up here. The heroes had scolded him. Then they had praised Bakugo. It felt like the usual routine, but everything was muted. The heroes kept glancing at him with a mixture of confusion and fear. They didn't know what to make of the boy who exploded. Midoriya Izuku. Izuku looked up. Detective Sakachi stood there. He looked tired. Your mother is here. The doors burst open. Inko Midoriya didn't run. She walked. Usually Inko was a bundle of nerves, apologizing for taking up space, weeping at the slightest provocation. But not tonight. She walked into the precinct with a stride that silenced the room. Her face was pale, set in a mask of terrified determination. She wore a long coat, and her hands were clenched so tight her knuckles were white. Izuku, she said, her voice steady. Mom, Izuku croaked. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I think I manifested a quirk? But that's impossible, the doctor said. Inko reached him. She didn't hug him immediately. She grabbed his face, tilting it side to side, checking his eyes. She checked his hands. She saw the faint, red marks on his skin, burns that were healing unnaturally fast. She let out a breath that sounded like a sob, but her eyes remained dry. Mrs. Midoriya, Sakachi started, stepping forward with a notepad. We need to discuss your son's quirk registry. The damage caused was significant. If he had a dormant quirk, it's highly illegal to. Inko turned on him. The movement was sharp. Her eyes, usually so soft, flashed with a terrifying intensity. A wave of invisible pressure, her telekinesis, but far stronger than pulling small objects, rattled the filing cabinets against the wall. Sakachi flinched, hand going to his holster instinctively. All Might, who had been watching from the corner in his skeletal form, hidden from view, stiffened. My son, Inko said, her voice low and dangerous, was diagnosed quirkless. We have the papers. Whatever happened today was an accident born of extreme stress. You will not interrogate him. You will not treat him like a criminal. We just want answers, ma'am, Sakachi said, raising his hands. The energy signature, it wasn't normal. I am taking him home, Inko stated. It wasn't a request. She turned back to Izuku, her expression softening into heartbreaking grief. She pulled him into a hug, burying his face in her shoulder. I'm sorry, Izuku, she whispered into his ear, echoing the words she had said 10 years ago. But this time, the meaning was different. I tried to keep it buried, she whispered, too low for the police to hear. I tried to keep you safe from the war. But it found you. Izuku pulled back, confused. Mom? What are you talking about? Inko looked at him, brushing the unruly green bangs from his forehead. She looked at the faint, lingering golden glow deep in his irises. You aren't quirkless, Izuku, she said softly. You never were. You are the last of the Solaris. And God help us, the seal is broken. Across the room, hidden in the shadows, All Might watched. He felt the phantom pain in his scar ache. He recognized the look in Inko's eyes. It wasn't the look of a civilian mother. It was the look of a soldier who realized the ceasefire was over. Meanwhile, in a dark bar somewhere in Kamino, the television screen flickered. The news report played the footage on a loop. It was grainy, shot from a bystander's phone, but the image was clear enough. The green-haired boy. The flash of white light. The sludge villain evaporating. Tamura Shigaraki scratched at his neck, the sound dry and rasping. Cheater, he's a cheater. That wasn't a normal punch. Sensei, did you see that? The monitor on the wall remained dark, only the audio visualizer moving. I saw it, Tamura. The voice of All for One was smooth, velvet over gravel. But there was something else in the tone. A ripple of genuine surprise? Or perhaps, delight. It looks like a light quirk, Shigaraki spat. Flashy. Annoying. No, all for one corrected. Not just light. That is starforging. The villain paused. A low chuckle echoed through the speakers. I thought I had extinguished that bloodline 60 years ago. It seems Inko Shimura was more resourceful than I gave her credit for. Shimura? Shigaraki paused. A relative? It doesn't matter, all for one said. Tamura. Change of plans. The Yui schedule is still our target. But there is a new priority. The screen flickered off. The lamp has been lit again, the Demon King whispered in the darkness. Go and blow it out before it burns us all. The taxi ride home was a suffocating vacuum of silence. Usually, the silence between Izuku and his mother was comfortable, filled with the unspoken bond of a small family against the world. But tonight, the air inside the cab felt heavy, pressurized, as if the vehicle were submerged deep underwater. Izuku sat pressed against the door, watching the city lights blur past the rain-slicked window. His body ached. It was a strange, vibrating ache, resonating in his marrow. The burns on his arms, where his skin had glowed with that terrifying, brilliant light, were wrapped in sterile gauze the paramedics had applied, but the heat beneath them hadn't faded. It felt like he had molten lead flowing through his veins instead of blood. He glanced sideways at his mother. Inko Midoriya sat rigid, her posture unnaturally straight. Her hands were folded in her lap, clutching her purse so tightly the leather creaked. She wasn't crying. That was the most terrifying part. Inko, who cried when he dropped an ice cream cone, who wept at soap opera commercials, who had apologized to him with tears in her eyes every day for 10 years, was dry-eyed. Her gaze was fixed forward, staring at the back of the taxi driver's head with a look of cold, calculating intensity that Izuku had never seen before. Mom? Izuku whispered, his voice raspy from the smoke inhalation. Not here, Izuku, she said. Her voice was soft, but it had a steel edge that snapped his mouth shut instantly. Wait until we are behind the barrier. Barrier? Izuku thought. Does she mean the door? The taxi pulled up to the apartment complex. It was a mundane, brick-faced building, the same one they had lived in for as long as Izuku could remember. It looked fragile now. After seeing what he had done, what he had become, the idea that drywall and bricks could protect them seemed laughable. Inko paid the driver. She didn't fumble for change. She moved with a sharp economy of motion. She ushered Izuku out, her hand resting on the small of his back. It wasn't a comforting touch. It was a guide, steering him, putting her body between him and the open street. They walked up the stairs. The fluorescent light in the hallway flickered, buzzing like an angry insect. They reached apartment 302. Inko unlocked the door, pushed Izuku inside, and closed it. Then, the world changed. Inko didn't just lock the deadbolt. She placed her hand flat against the metal door. Seal, she murmured. The air in the apartment rippled. Izuku felt his ears pop, a sensation similar to a rapid change in altitude. A faint, translucent green shimmer coated the doorframe, the windows, and the vents, pulsing once before fading into invisibility. The ambient noise of the city, the distant traffic, the neighbor's TV, the wind, vanished instantly. The silence was absolute. Izuku backed away, tripping over his own feet and landing on the entryway mat. He looked at his mother with wide, fearful eyes. Mom, what did you just do? Inko turned to him. She took a deep breath, and for a moment, her shoulders slumped, the facade cracking just enough to show the terrified mother beneath. But she caught herself. She straightened up, took off her coat, and hung it up. I secured the perimeter, she said calmly, walking past him into the living room. Sit down, Izuku. We have a lot to talk about. And I don't want the flies on the wall to hear us. Izuku scrambled to his feet and followed her. Flies? You mean spies? Mom, you're scaring me. The police? That detective, you used your quirk on them. That's illegal usage. And you were strong. You moved the whole filing cabinet without even looking. Inko stood in the center of the living room. She didn't sit. She looked at the all-might clock on the wall, then at the shrine of hero merchandise Izuku had built in the corner. My quirk, Inko repeated, the words tasting bitter in her mouth. Attraction of small objects. That is what is written on my registry. That is what I told you. That is what I told your father. She turned to face him. Her green eyes, usually so warm, were now burning with a low-level luminescence that matched the energy Izuku had felt earlier. It was a lie, Izuku. Izuku froze. A lie? A necessary fiction, Inko said. She raised her hand. The coffee table, solid oak, heavy enough that Izuku struggled to move it when vacuuming, didn't just slide. It floated. It lifted 3 feet into the air, steady as a rock. Then the sofa followed, then the television. Then the books from the shelves. Within seconds, every loose object in the room was suspended in a complex, rotating orbit around Inko. She wasn't straining. She wasn't even blinking. The air pressure in the room grew heavy, charged with a psychic weight that made the hair on Izuku's arms stand up. I do not attract small objects, Inko said, her voice echoing slightly. I possess a high-level telekinetic field capable of molecular manipulation and force projection. I am a Class A emitter, and if I had registered this power correctly 20 years ago, we would both be dead. She clenched her fist. The furniture set itself down gently, precisely in its original place, without a sound. Izuku's mind was reeling. His analytical brain was trying to process the data, but the emotional shock was jamming the gears. Dead? Why? Because you're strong? Izuku stammered. Strong heroes are celebrated. If you're this strong, you could have been a pro. We wouldn't have had to worry about money. Dad wouldn't have had to work overseas. Your father is overseas because I made him go, Inko cut in. To keep him away from the blast zone, that is our bloodline. She walked over to the bookshelf and pulled out an old photo album. It wasn't the family album Izuku knew. This one was bound in cracked, black leather, smelling of dust and ozone. She sat on the sofa and patted the cushion beside her. Sit. Izuku sat, keeping a safe distance. He looked at his mother as if she were a stranger. Izuku, what do you know about the dawn of quirks? I know the history, Izuku said, his voice trembling. The glowing baby in Ching City. Then the chaos. Society collapsed. Governments fell. It was the Dark Age before the hero system was established. The history books are written by the victors, Inko said, opening the album. They focus on the chaos. They don't talk about the war that happened in the shadows. The war for the soul of humanity. She pointed to a photograph. It was black and white, grainy and old. It showed a group of people standing in front of a burning ruin. They wore robes and armor that looked cobbled together, but their eyes, even in the monochrome photo, their eyes seemed to glow. Before All Might, Inko said softly. Before the Hero Association. There were 2 great powers that rose from the chaos. One was a man who believed power existed to be taken. He could steal quirks, hoard them, and gift them to loyal subjects. He wanted to bring order through tyranny. They called him the Demon King. You know him as a myth, or a ghost story. All for one, Izuku whispered. The name sent a shiver down his spine. It was a name whispered on the dark web forums he frequented, a conspiracy theory that most people dismissed. He is real, Inko said darkly. And he was unstoppable. Except for one clan. One family that possessed a meta-ability. That's what we called quirks back then, that he could not steal. She turned the page. The picture showed a man wreathed in light. He was levitating, holding back a wave of darkness with a wall of brilliance. The Solaris lineage, Inko said. The name seemed to warm the air in the room. Our ancestors. They were the original peacekeepers. They wielded star forging. It is not a simple light quirk, Izuku. It is the ability to manipulate pure biological energy, converting calories and life force into photons, heat, and hard light constructs. It is the power of a sun in a human vessel. Izuku looked at his hands. The burns throbbed. Star forging. It was the only power All for One feared, Inko explained. Because he couldn't take it. The Solaris energy is volatile. It requires a specific genetic marker to contain it. If he tried to steal it, it would burn his body from the inside out. He called it the poison chalice. So, he killed them, Izuku deduced, the horror sinking in. Inko nodded slowly. He couldn't steal it, so he decided to extinguish it. He hunted the Solaris down. Men, women, children. It was a genocide, Izuku. By the time the hero system began to form, the clan was all but gone. My grandmother was one of the last survivors. She changed her name. She suppressed her power. She taught her daughter, my mother, to do the same. And my mother taught me. Inko closed the book. We survived by becoming invisible. By pretending to be weak. By letting the world forget the light so the shadow would pass us by. Izuku stared at the leather cover of the album. The weight of the revelation was crushing. He wasn't just a random kid from Yuzurifu. He was the heir to a dead civilization, a soldier in a war he didn't know was still being fought. But then, a sharper, more personal pain pierced through the shock. You knew, Izuku said. His voice was quiet, trembling. Inko flinched. When we went to the doctor, Izuku said, his voice rising. When Dr. Tsubasa said I had the extra toe joint. When he said I was quirkless. When I cried in front of the computer watching All Might. You knew. Izuku, please, you apologized. Izuku shouted, standing up. Tears finally spilled over, hot and angry. You said I'm sorry, Izuku. I thought you were sorry because I was broken. I thought you were sorry because I couldn't follow my dream. But you were sorry because you were lying to me. He paced the room, gesturing wildly. All those years. All the bullying. Kaken burning me with explosions. Everyone calling me useless. You watched that happen. You could have told me. You could have told me I had a power. I couldn't. Inko shouted back, standing up to meet him. If you knew, you would have used it. And if you used it, he would have found you. I would have been a hero. Izuku screamed. You would have been a corpse. Inko's scream shattered the air. A telekinetic pulse wave radiated from her, knocking the pictures off the walls and cracking the plaster. Izuku stumbled back, silenced by the raw, feral terror in his mother's voice. Inko was breathing hard, her hands shaking. Tears were streaming down her face now. The mask of the general had fallen, revealing the desperate mother beneath. Do you think it was easy? She sobbed. Do you think I wanted to see my son come home with bruises? Do you think I wanted to see you hate yourself? Every time you cried, it broke my heart, Izuku. But a broken heart is better than a buried son. She took a step toward him, her hands reaching out but not touching him. When you were born, you were glowing. Literally glowing. The nurses were amazed. But I knew. I felt the signature. It was stronger than mine. Stronger than my mother's. You were a true awakener. A beacon. She wiped her face aggressively. I made a choice. I used my telekinesis on a microscopic level. I created a psychic block in your brainstem. I pinched the nerve pathways that allowed you to channel the energy. I sealed the sun inside you, Izuku. I made you quirkless to save your life. Izuku leaned against the wall, sliding down until he hit the floor. He pulled his knees to his chest. So, Dr. Tsubasa, paid off, Inko admitted. The toe joint theory is real science, but it's not absolute. You have the joint, yes. It was a convenient excuse. I bought the diagnosis so the registry would list you as none. Izuku buried his face in his hands. His entire life had been a fabrication. The foundation of his identity, the underdog, the quirkless boy who dreamed, was built on a lie. But today, Izuku mumbled into his palms. The seal broke. The sludge villain, Inko said, her voice regaining some composure. Suffocation triggers the primal survival instinct. The brain overrides all blocks to preserve life. You were dying. The Solaris energy burned through my psychic seal to save you. She walked over and knelt in front of him. She didn't use her powers. She just reached out and took his scarred, bandaged hands in hers. Her hands were warm. The seal is shattered, Izuku. I can't put it back. The dam has burst. Your body has tasted the energy, and it will not go back to sleep. She looked deep into his eyes. Her gaze was intense, pleading. We are at a crossroads. And this time, I cannot make the choice for you. Izuku looked up. What choice? Option 1, Inko said. I know a technique. It is dangerous, and it will be agonizing. I can go into your mind and burn out the energy centers permanently. It will strip you of the Solaris power forever. You will be truly quirkless. We can move. Change our names. You can live a normal, safe life. You can be a doctor, a police officer, anything, but not a target. Izuku swallowed hard. To be normal. To be safe. To stop the pain in his arms. Option 2, Inko continued, her grip on his hands tightening. You keep it. You reclaim the lineage. But if you do this, there is no going back. You will have to train harder than anyone else. You will have to learn to control a power that can literally incinerate you. And one day, he will come for you. The Demon King is still out there. And he does not forgive. The room fell silent again. Izuku looked at the All Might poster on the opposite wall. The smile was still there. I am here. He thought about All Might on the roof. The skeleton man. You have to see reality. He thought about Bakugo's face in the sludge. The fear. He thought about the feeling of the light. When it had exploded from him, it hadn't felt like a weapon. It had felt like breathing. For the first time in his life, he hadn't felt empty. He had felt full. Mom, Izuku said quietly. Yes, honey. The dream I have, the golden warrior in the ashes. Is that an ancestor? Likely, Inko said. The Solaris memory lives in the blood. Did they run? Izuku asked. Did they hide? No, Inko whispered. They stood until the end. Izuku closed his eyes. He felt the hum in his chest. It was waiting for his answer. I don't want to hide anymore, Izuku said. He opened his eyes. The gold flecks in his emerald irises caught the light. All my life, I've been told I can't. I can't be a hero. I can't save anyone. I can't do anything. But today, I saved Kaken. I did it. And it felt like I was finally me. He squeezed his mother's hands. I don't want to be normal, Mom. I want to be a hero. Even if it's dangerous. Even if he comes for me. If I have this power, if I have the power to stop people like that sludge villain, then I have to use it. Otherwise, all those years of suffering were for nothing. Inko stared at him. For a moment, she looked like she might argue. She looked like she might force the first option on him. But then she saw it. The set of his jaw. The fire in his eyes. It was the same look her grandmother had worn in the old photos. The look of a Solaris. Inko closed her eyes and let out a long, shuddering sigh. She bowed her head, her forehead resting against their joined hands. I knew you would say that, she whispered. You are too much like your father. And too much like me. She stayed there for a moment, gathering herself. Mourning the safe life her son would never have. Then, she raised her head. The tears were gone. The general was back. Very well, Inko said. She stood up and smoothed her skirt. If you are going to walk this path, you will not do it blindly. And you will not do it weakly. She walked over to the cabinet and pulled out a small metal box. From it, she took a pair of heavy, insulated gloves. They looked industrial, lined with lead and ceramics. Stand up, Izuku. Izuku stood up, wincing slightly as his legs protested. The Solaris power is not like one for all or other strength enhancers, Inko lectured, her tone shifting into instructor mode. It is not just strength. It is thermodynamics and light manipulation. Your body is a battery. Right now you are a leaky battery. If you don't learn to regulate the output, you will cook your internal organs before a villain ever touches you. She tossed him the gloves. He caught them. They were heavy. Put them on. Izuku slid his hands into the gloves. They felt cool against his burns. Tonight you rest, Inko commanded. Your cells are damaged. You need protein and sleep. But tomorrow morning, at 4 a.m., we go to the beach. Dagoba Beach? Izuku asked. The trash heap? It is secluded, Inko said. And there is plenty of material for target practice. She walked to the window and peered out through the blinds, checking the street one last time. You wanted to be a hero, Izuku. You wanted to reclaim the lineage. She turned back to him, her telekinetic aura flaring briefly, lifting her hair like a halo. Then prepare yourself. Because I am not going to train you to be a pro-hero. The schools can do that. I am going to train you to be a Solaris. I am going to train you to survive the devil. Izuku looked at his mother. He had never seen her look so formidable. He felt a spike of fear, but it was drowned out by a surge of excitement. Yes, ma'am, Izuku said, snapping to attention. Go to bed, she ordered. Izuku nodded and headed for his room. He paused at the door. Mom? Yes? Thank you. For keeping me safe. And for telling me the truth. Inko's expression softened, just a fraction. Sleep well, my little son. The night is short. Izuku entered his room. It felt different now. The All Might posters were the same, but they felt like relics of a childhood he had just outgrown. He sat on his bed and looked at his gloved hands. He closed his eyes and focused. He reached for that feeling deep inside him. It was there. Immediate. Responsive. A torrent of energy waiting to be unleashed. He didn't pull on it. He just acknowledged it. Solaris, he whispered, testing the name on his tongue. Aurelius. He lay back on his pillow. He didn't think he would sleep, but exhaustion pulled him down quickly. As he drifted off, he found himself back in the dream. The burning city. The ash, but this time, when he looked at the golden warrior on the pile of rubble, the figure turned its head. The visor of the helmet cleared. It was his own face looking back at him. And for the first time, the warrior smiled. The next morning, 4 a.m., the sky was pitch black. The streetlights buzzed. Izuku stood at the entrance of Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. It was a mountain of garbage. Tires, refrigerators, broken cars, years of illegal dumping had turned the coastline into a landfill. The smell was atrocious. Inko stood beside him. She was wearing a tracksuit and holding a stopwatch. She looked nothing like the soft housewife the neighbors knew. This beach, Inko said, gesturing to the expanse of trash, is your forge. I'm going to clean it? Izuku guessed, remembering reading about community service for heroes. Eventually, Inko said. But first, you are going to learn to breathe. She pointed to a rusted refrigerator about 20 feet away. The Solaris power requires oxygen. It is a combustion reaction on a cellular level. If you panic, if you hyperventilate, you flare up and burn out. You must control your heart rate. She handed him a heart rate monitor. He strapped it to his chest. Keep your heart rate under 100, Inko ordered. Now, light up your hand. Just your hand. Do not fire. Just hold the light. Izuku nodded. He took a deep breath. Focus. He envisioned the heat flowing down his arm. He felt the prickle under his skin. Flash. His right hand ignited. A soft, golden glow enveloped his glove. Beep beep beep. The monitor spiked. 120. 130. Too hot. Inko barked. You're pouring gasoline on a candle. Restrict the flow. Visualize a valve. I'm trying. Izuku gritted his teeth. The heat was climbing up his wrist. It hurt. Don't try. Do. Inko raised a finger. A crushed soda can floated up from the pile and shot toward him like a bullet, dodging while maintaining the light. Go. Wah. Izuku ducked, the can whizzing past his ear. Keep the light steady. Inko commanded, lifting an old car tire. Again. Mom. That's a tire. If you can't dodge a tire, you can't dodge a villain. Move. The tire flew. Izuku scrambled to the left, tripping over a trash bag. His concentration broke. The light in his hand flared violently, turning white hot, before sputtering out completely. He landed face first in the sand. Heart rate 160, Inko read from the remote monitor. Failed. Izuku groaned, spitting sand out of his mouth. This is Spartan. This is survival, Inko corrected. Get up. Again. Izuku pushed himself up. His muscles screamed. His burn stung. But he looked at the refrigerator. He looked at his mother's unyielding face. He clenched his fist. Again, he repeated. Somewhere in the shadows. While Izuku trained, another conversation was taking place. In a small police station office, All Might sat in his skinny form, holding a phone to his ear. Yes, Tsukachi. I'm sure. The detective on the other end sounded worried. Tashinori, the registry on Midoriya Inko. It's been flagged. Someone high up just accessed her file. It was a jagged entry. Probably a hack. All Might gripped the phone tightly. Already? If her son really has a meta-ability related to the pre-quirk era, this is bad. That kind of power attracts the wrong kind of attention. I know, All Might said, looking out the window at the rising sun. I saw the boy, Naomasa. I saw the light. It wasn't just a quirk. It felt holy. And dangerous. What will you do? You rejected him yesterday, All Might winced. The memory of the boy's crushed face on the rooftop haunted him. I made a mistake, All Might admitted. I judged him by the standards of a normal vessel. But he isn't normal. If he is what I think he is, he doesn't need one for all. He needs guidance. You're going to train him? I rejected him as a successor, All Might said, standing up. But I cannot reject him as a student. If I leave him alone, that power will destroy him. Or worse. He will take him. All Might transformed. The muscle form puffed up, steam rolling off his shoulders. The smile returned, but it was grim. I have to go to the beach. It seems I have a groveling apology to make. And perhaps, a partnership to propose. He hung up the phone. The sun broke over the horizon, casting long golden rays across the city. The golden age was ending. The solar age was beginning. And Izuku Midoriya was standing right in the center of the flare. The smell of Dagoba Municipal Beach Park was a complex, layered stench. It was the rot of organic waste mixed with the sharp, chemical tang of rusted metal and degrading plastic. But on this particular morning, 2 weeks into Izuku Midoriya's training, a new scent had been introduced to the bouquet, the smell of ozone and singed hair. Again, Inko's voice cut through the pre-dawn gloom. Izuku stood knee-deep in a pile of debris that included a washing machine, several tires, and what looked like the chassis of a 1990s sedan. He was panting, his breath hitching in his throat. Sweat didn't just drip from him, it evaporated off his skin in wisps of steam. He wore the heavy lead-lined gauntlets his mother had given him, but even through the insulation, he could feel the thrumming, dangerous vibration of his bones. My arms. Izuku gasped, flexing his fingers. They feel like they're vibrating. That is the resonance, Inko said, not looking up from her stopwatch. She was perched atop a precarious stack of lockers, balancing with an unconscious grace that defied physics. Your cells are acclimating to the energy throughput. If you stop now, the pathways will constrict. You must push the energy out, or it will stagnate and burn you. Target the washing machine. Solaris burst. Low yield. Precision over power. Izuku nodded. He widened his stance. He closed his eyes, visualizing the core in his stomach, the miniature sun that had awakened 2 weeks ago. It wasn't like a muscle. It felt more like a pressurized tank. He mentally opened the valve. Heat flooded his chest, raced up his shoulder, and pooled in his right palm. The air around his hand shimmered, distorting the view of the trash piles behind it. A golden light began to bleed through the seams of the gauntlet. Focus, he told himself. Don't let it explode. Shape it. Condense it. He thrust his palm forward. Ha! A beam of concentrated light, no wider than a pencil, shot from his palm. It was brilliant, pure gold, and accompanied by a high-pitched thwip sound. The beam struck the washing machine. There was no explosion. Instead, the metal simply vanished where the light touched it. The beam punched a perfectly circular hole through the front, through the drum, through the back panel, and continued on to slice through 3 tires behind it before dissipating. The edges of the hole in the washing machine glowed cherry red, molten metal dripping down like wax. Izuku collapsed to his knees, clutching his wrist. The recoil wasn't physical, it was thermal. A wave of exhaustion hit him so hard his vision grayed out. Better, Inko said, hopping down from her perch. She floated gently to the ground, the sand barely shifting under her sneakers. She walked over to the washing machine and inspected the hole. Cauterization is instant, she noted, running a finger near the molten edge. Penetration is high. But you took 3 seconds to charge. In a real fight you would have been hit 5 times. She turned to her son. Her expression was stern, but her eyes held a glimmer of pride she tried to hide. She reached into her bag and pulled out a thermos. Drink. Electrolytes and cooling agents. Izuku took the thermos with trembling hands. The liquid was ice-cold and tasted like mint and chalk. He drank it greedily. Mom, he panted, wiping his mouth. The heat, it doesn't go away. It feels like I'm cooking from the inside. That is the curse of the Solaris, Inko said quietly, crouching beside him to adjust the straps on his gauntlets. Our ancestors didn't just wield the light, they were fuel for it. You have to increase your physical mass. Your body is the furnace. If the furnace is weak, the fire melts the bricks. She looked at his arms. Even with the training, they were still thin. He was lean, wiry, but he lacked the density required to handle the output he was generating. We need to up the physical conditioning, Inko decided. From tomorrow, we double the hauling weight. No quirks. Just lifting. Izuku groaned, letting his head fall back onto a pile of old newspapers. You're trying to kill me. I am trying to make you fireproof, Inko retorted. She stood up and brushed the sand from her knees. Suddenly, she froze. Her head snapped toward the entrance of the park, near the concrete steps leading down from the street. The air around her shimmered. A loose pipe nearby rattled, lifting an inch off the ground. Mom? Izuku sat up, sensing the shift in her demeanor. What is it? We have a guest, Inko said, her voice dropping to a dangerous octave. And he has been watching for 10 minutes. Izuku scrambled to his feet, ignoring the ache in his legs. He followed her gaze. Standing in the shadows of the stairway, silhouetted against the rising sun, was a skeletal figure. He wore a baggy yellow suit that hung off his emaciated frame like a tarp on a scarecrow. His blonde hair stuck up in 2 drooping tufts. Izuku gasped. All Might? The figure stepped out of the shadows. He raised a hand in a gesture of peace. Good morning, Toshinori Yagi said, his voice rasping slightly. I apologize for the intrusion. I didn't want to interrupt the lesson. Inko stepped in front of Izuku. It was an instinctual move, placing herself between her cub and the intruder. The air pressure dropped as her telekinetic field expanded. Toshinori Yagi, Inko said, naming him without his hero title. You are far from your tower. All Might stopped. He looked at Inko with a mixture of surprise and respect. You know who I am. And you know my real name. You are full of surprises, Mrs. Midoriya. I know many things, Inko said coldly. I know that you are the symbol of peace. I know that you are currently running on fumes. And I know that you broke my son's heart on a rooftop 2 weeks ago. Izuku winced. Mom, please, quiet, Izuku, Inko commanded, not looking back. Why are you here, All Might? If you are here to tell him to give up again, I suggest you leave before I test exactly how much of that peace is left in your body. It was a threat. A genuine threat against the #1 hero. And the terrifying thing was, Inko looked like she meant it. All Might didn't get angry. He didn't laugh. He looked down at his feet, his expression filled with a profound, aching shame. I deserve that, he said softly. I deserve every bit of that anger. He looked up, his hollow blue eyes locking onto Izuku. I am not here to tell him to give up, All Might said. I am here to apologize. And to make an offer. The 3 of them sat on a relatively clean patch of concrete near the seawall. The sun had fully risen now, painting the ocean in shades of orange and pink. The seagulls cried overhead, oblivious to the gathering of titans below. All Might sat cross-legged, his bony hands resting on his knees. Inko sat opposite him, posture rigid, ready to strike. Izuku sat between them, feeling like a child caught in a divorce hearing, vibrating with anxiety. Young Midoriya, All Might began, his voice solemn. On that roof, I spoke to you from a place of fear. I projected my own limitations onto you. I saw a boy without a quirk, and I saw a victim waiting to happen. I wanted to protect you from the cruelty of this world. He clenched his fist. But I was wrong. I watched the news. I saw what you did in the shopping district. While I hesitated, you moved. You didn't have a plan. You didn't have a weapon. You just had the spirit. He placed a hand over his heart. And then I saw the light. That power. It is not something I have seen before. But the heart that wields it? That is something I recognize. Izuku felt tears pricking his eyes. To hear those words, it was everything he had wanted for his entire life. Thank you, Izuku whispered. Don't thank me yet, All Might said. He looked at Inko, asking for permission with his eyes. Inko gave a stiff nod. All Might took a deep breath. Steam began to pour from his body. Izuku. You asked me if you could be a hero. I gave you the wrong answer. Now I want to give you a different question. A question? I have a secret, All Might said. A secret that the world does not know. My quirk was not something I was born with. Izuku's eyes went wide. Inko remained impassive. She knew the history of the eras, even if the specifics of All Might's power were vague to her. It is a sacred torch that has been passed down from generation to generation, All Might continued, his voice taking on a storytelling cadence. I am the eighth holder. It is a crystallization of power that stockpiles energy and transfers it to another. Its name is One for All. One. For All, Izuku repeated. Yes. It is the power to cultivate strength and pass it on, in order to defeat the great evil, All Might said, his eyes darkening momentarily as he thought of All for One. I have been looking for a successor, someone to inherit this power. Someone with the right heart. He leaned forward, extending his hand toward Izuku. Young Midoriya. You have the heart of a hero. You have the instinct to save others even at the cost of yourself. I believe you are worthy. I want you to inherit my power. I want you to become the next symbol of peace. The world stopped. Izuku stared at the hand. It was large, scarred, and trembling slightly. This was it. The ultimate validation. The greatest hero in history was offering him the greatest power in history. He could have One for All. He could be strong. He could be just like All Might. He could smile and save everyone with a single punch. He wouldn't have to worry about the burning heat of the Solaris, or the complex, dangerous legacy of his mother's clan. He could just be the successor. His hand twitched, starting to reach out. Izuku, Inko's voice cut through the trance. It wasn't loud. It was just a name. But it carried the weight of the last 2 weeks. Izuku froze. He looked at his mother. She wasn't looking at him. She was looking at the ocean. She was letting him make the choice. But he saw the tension in her jaw. He saw the gloves she had sewn for him sitting in her lap. He looked back at All Might's hand. Then, he looked down at his own chest. He closed his eyes and felt the hum. The Solaris. It was dangerous. It was painful. It was a power that had been hunted to extinction. It was a poisoned chalice, as his mother had called it. But it was his. It was the energy of his grandmother who had fled in the night. It was the energy of the ancestors who had stood against the darkness when everyone else ran. It was the energy that had broken the seal to save Bakugo. If he took One for All, what would happen to the Solaris? 2 suns cannot exist in one sky. A thought drifted through his mind. If I take his fire, I will drown out my own. Or worse, the mixture will destroy me. But more than the physics, it was the principle. Taking One for All meant stepping into All Might's shadow. It meant continuing his legacy. But Izuku had realized something on the beach, sweating and bleeding into the sand. He didn't want to be All Might anymore. He wanted to be Izuku Midoriya. He wanted to be the radiant hero. Slowly, agonizingly, Izuku pulled his hand back. He placed his hands on his knees and bowed his head. Izuku started, his voice shaking. He cleared his throat. I am honored. More than you can imagine. To be acknowledged by you. It's all I ever wanted. All Might smiled, expecting the acceptance. Then, but I can't, Izuku said. The silence that followed was louder than the waves crashing against the shore. All Might blinked. His hand was still extended in the air. I beg your pardon? Izuku raised his head. His eyes were wet, but his gaze was steady. The golden flecks in his irises caught the morning light. I can't take your power, All Might. Why? All Might asked, genuinely baffled. You said you wanted to be a hero. With One for All, you would be the greatest. Your current power. I saw it. It hurts you. It's unstable. One for All would give you the durability to. That's just it, Izuku interrupted gently. My power, the Solaris, it is unstable. It's a burden. But it's my burden. He looked at his gloved hands. My mother told me the history of my family. They were wiped out because they stood against the darkness. They were forgotten. If I take One for All, I'm just replacing their story with yours. I'm letting them die all over again. He looked at Inko. She was looking at him now, her eyes wide, her lips parted in shock. She hadn't expected him to say no, and besides, Izuku continued, looking back at the hero. My body is already a furnace. My mother says I'm barely containing the energy I have. If I added your power to mine, I think I'd explode. Like, really explode. Nuke the city, explode. All Might slowly lowered his hand. He looked at the boy, really looked at him. He didn't see a fanboy anymore. He didn't see a vessel. He saw a young man who had found his own footing. You are rejecting the easy path, All Might murmured. One for all is a shortcut to greatness. You are choosing a path of pain. A path of recovering a lost lineage. I don't want a shortcut, Izuku said, clenching his fist. I want to be the hero who reclaims the light. I want to show the world that the Solaris didn't die out. That we're still here. He stood up and bowed deeply, a perfect 90-degree angle. Thank you for the offer, All Might. It is the greatest honor of my life. But I have to say no. Izuku held the bow, terrified that All Might would be angry. That the hero would storm off, insulted. Instead, a loud, booming laugh erupted. Ha ha! All Might threw his head back. Blood coughed from his mouth, but he didn't seem to care. He wiped it away, his eyes sparkling. Amazing! Truly amazing! He stood up and placed a heavy hand on Izuku's shoulder, forcing him to straighten up. I offer you the keys to the kingdom, and you say, no thanks, I'll build my own castle. You are even more stubborn than I am. All Might grinned, and for a moment, the skeleton looked like the Titan again. You are right, young Midoriya. 2 powers of such magnitude, it would likely destroy you. And you are right about the legacy. To cast aside your own blood for mine would be a tragedy. He looked at Inko. You have raised a fine warrior, Mrs. Midoriya. Inko stood up. She looked at her son with a mixture of relief and overwhelming love. She walked over and smoothed his hair. He is stubborn, she agreed. He gets it from his father. So All Might said, clapping his hands together. The question remains. What now? You are training for UA, correct? Yes, Izuku said. The entrance exam is in 10 months. And you, All Might pointed at Inko, are teaching him control. Energy manipulation. Theory. I am. Inko nodded, but All Might wagged a finger. With all due respect, Mrs. Midoriya, your combat experience is limited? You are a powerful telekinetic, but you have lived in hiding. You know how to control power. But do you know how to be a hero? Inko bristled slightly. I know enough to keep him alive. Survival is not heroism, All Might countered softly. Heroism is performance. It is strategy. It is knowing how to punch a villain without killing them. It is knowing how to smile when you are terrified. He stepped closer to Izuku. I cannot give you my quirk. You have made that clear. But the position of teacher is still open, is it not? Izuku's jaw dropped. Wait, you mean? All Might posed, flexing a non-existent bicep. I have knowledge. I have experience. I have a comprehensive workout plan designed to build muscle mass in record time. And I have connections at UA. He looked at Inko, his expression turning serious. You teach him the fire. Let me teach him the vessel. You teach him to be a Solaris. Let me teach him to be a symbol. Inko crossed her arms. She looked at the gaunt man. She analyzed him. She saw the sincerity in his eyes. She knew that Izuku needed physical conditioning that she couldn't provide. She knew he needed to learn the laws, the streets, the mindset of a pro. And she knew that having All Might as a mentor would be the ultimate shield against All for One. If the symbol of peace was watching over him, the shadows would hesitate to strike. A joint custody arrangement, Inko mused. An accord, All Might corrected. The Solaris Accord. Inko was silent for a long moment. Then, she extended her hand. If you break him, Inko warned, I will crush your car into a cube. A very small cube. All Might swallowed nervously, but he took her hand. Understood. He turned to Izuku and offered a fist bump. Well, young Midoriya? Do we have a deal? Will you let me help you polish that son of yours? Izuku looked at the fist. He looked at his mom. He looked at the trash-covered beach that was about to become his hell and his heaven. He punched his fist against All Might's. Yes, sir! Izuku shouted. 5 months later, the training had changed. It was no longer just standing still and shooting beams. It was hell on earth. Move your feet! All Might roared from atop a pile of tires. He was riding a Segway for some reason, shouting through a megaphone. A stationary target is a dead target. The Solaris style requires mobility. You are a photon, not a turret. Izuku was sprinting through an obstacle course made of precarious junk. He was carrying a safe on his back, strapped on by Inko's telekinesis so it wouldn't slip. Incoming! Inko shouted from the other side. She flicked her wrist. A barrage of baseballs, accelerated to 60 miles per hour, shot toward him. Defense mode. Izuku gasped. He didn't fire a beam. He channeled the energy to his skin. Photonic armor, stage 1. A hexagonal pattern of golden light flashed across his torso and arms. It was a hard light construct, a thin layer of solidified energy. Thwack. 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 The baseballs hit him. The light flared, absorbing the kinetic impact. It hurt, like being punched by a weak boxer, but it didn't break his ribs. Don't stop! All Might yelled. Transition to offense. The villain is escaping. Izuku crested the top of the trash pile. He saw the target, a mannequin painted to look like the sludge villain. He planted his feet. He took a breath, sinking his heartbeat to the hum in his veins. Solaris style. He channeled the heat to his legs. This was a new technique. Propulsion. Flash step. Boom. A small explosion of light erupted from his heels. Izuku didn't run. He vanished. He propelled himself forward at blinding speed, crossing the 30-foot gap in a blink. He appeared in front of the mannequin, his fist glowing white-hot. Sunstrike. He punched the mannequin. He didn't just hit it, he drove his fist through it. The heat vaporized the plastic instantly. The force of the blow, combined with the momentum, shattered the wooden pallet behind it. Izuku landed, skidding to a halt in the sand. His shoes were smoking. His breath came in ragged gasps. Time! Inko called out. 14 seconds. A new record! All Might cheered, rolling down on his Segway. Excellent transition from defense to mobility. However, your landing was sloppy. You wasted energy on friction. You need to glide, not skid. Izuku collapsed onto his back, staring up at the clouds. I can't feel my legs. That means it's working. All Might gave a thumbs up. Inko walked over, a towel in her hand. She looked at the stopwatch, then at her son. He was changing. In 5 months he had grown. He was taller. His shoulders were broader. The baby fat was gone, replaced by lean, dense muscle. His hands were calloused and scarred from the heat, but they were steady. But the biggest change was in his eyes. The anxiety was fading. The flinch was gone. When he looked at something, he dissected it. He is ready for the next phase, Inko said to All Might. The next phase? All Might asked. You mean beam intensity? No, Inko said. I mean combat. Real combat. She looked at All Might. I want you to spar with him. All Might blinked. Me? But I might break him. Not in your muscle form, Inko clarified. I mean you, Toshinori. You have decades of martial arts experience. Izuku has power, but he telegraphs his moves. He needs to learn hand-to-hand from a master. I am frail, Inko, All Might pointed out. If he hits me with that quirk, I will turn into ash. Then don't let him hit you, Inko said simply. And Izuku. She looked down at her son. You are not allowed to use your quirk. No light. No armor. Just your fists and your brain. If you use a spark, you fail. Izuku groaned, covering his face with the towel. So, I have to fight the greatest hero in the world, while powerless, and he has to beat me up while looking like a skeleton? Exactly, All Might grinned, cracking his knuckles. This will be fun. I haven't had a good spar in ages. Come on, young Midoriya. Let me show you the difference between power and skill. 2 months before the exam, the beach was clean. It wasn't just clean, it was pristine. The mountains of trash were gone. The sand was raked. The water sparkled, free of oil slicks. Izuku stood at the water's edge, watching the sunrise. He was shirtless. His body was a map of his journey. His muscles were defined, corded like steel cables under his skin. Faint, pale lines traced his arms and chest, scars from the early days when his vents had overheated. They looked like lightning bolts. All Might stood beside him in his muscle form. "You did it," All Might said. "You moved the impossible." "I didn't just move it," Izuku said, clenching his fist. A soft, golden aura enveloped him. It wasn't wild anymore. It didn't burn. It fit him like a second skin. "I used it to build myself. Are you ready?" All Might asked. "UA is not just a school. It is a battlefield." Izuku turned to face him. The golden light in his eyes flared, calm and absolute. "I'm not afraid anymore, All Might. I know who I am." He looked at his hand. "I am not the symbol of peace. I am the torchbearer of the Solaris. And I'm going to burn brighter than anyone." All Might smiled. It was a genuine, proud smile. "Then go," All Might said, pointing toward the city. "Go and claim your future. Plus ultra! Plus ultra!" Izuku turned and ran. He didn't use his flash step. He just ran, his legs eating up the distance, running toward the exam, toward UA, toward the destiny he had chosen for himself. Back at the beach entrance, Inko watched him go. She held the black leather photo album in her hands. "Watch over him, mother," she whispered to the wind. "He is walking into the lion's den. But he is not a lamb." She looked at the clean horizon. "He is the lion." The prologue to the exam. The gates of UA High School were massive. They were intimidating. They were designed to make you feel small. Izuku stood in front of them. He wore his middle school uniform, but it felt tight across his chest now. Around him, students were murmuring, nervous, excited. "Out of my way, Deku." The voice was low, growling. Izuku didn't flinch. He didn't jump. He slowly turned around. Katsuki Bakugo stood there. He looked the same, angry, arrogant. But he stopped when he saw Izuku's face. He saw the scars on Izuku's neck. He saw the way Izuku stood, grounded, balanced, and he felt the heat. Just standing near Izuku felt like standing near an open oven door. "Kaken," Izuku said. His voice was calm. "Good luck." Bakugo blinked. He had expected stuttering. He had expected fear. "Don't tell me what to do!" Bakugo snapped, shoving past him. But there was no heat in it. Bakugo was unsettled. What the hell happened to the nerd? Izuku watched him go. Then, he took a step forward. However, his foot caught on a loose paving stone. "Oh no," Izuku thought. "I'm going to trip. On the first step. After 10 months of hell training, I'm going to face plant." He braced for impact. But he didn't fall. He floated. "Are you okay?" A bubbly voice. Izuku looked up. A girl with brown hair and a round face was holding her hand out, her fingertips touching his backpack. "I stopped you with my quirk," she said, smiling. "It's bad luck to fall, right?" She set him down. "I'm Uraraka Ochako. Let's do our best." She waved and ran off. Izuku stood there, blinking. He looked at his hand. He felt the Solaris energy humming, responding to his elevated heart rate. Not from fear, but from something else. He smiled. "Yeah," he whispered. "Let's do our best." He walked through the gates. The golden light inside him surged, ready to be unleashed. The ashen dream was over. The radiant rebirth had begun. The human body is not designed to house a star. This was the first lesson Izuku Midoriya learned in the 10 months of hell that followed his acceptance of the Solaris Accord. The biological reality of the Solaris lineage was brutal. Unlike One for All, which was a stockpiled power handed down like a baton, the Solaris energy was a metabolic furnace. It converted calories, oxygen, and stamina into pure photonic energy. The output was magnificent, blinding light, searing heat, hard light constructs. But the vessel? The vessel was meat and bone. If the furnace burned too hot, the chimney would melt. Izuku learned this on day 3, when he tried to sustain a beam of light for 10 seconds and ended up with second-degree burns on his forearms that smelled faintly of cooked pork. "Stop crying," Inko Midoriya said, applying a cold aloe compress with her telekinesis while Izuku hissed in pain on the living room floor. "The tears dehydrate you. Dehydration lowers your thermal resistance." Do you want to burn faster? Izuku choked back a sob. It hurts, Mom. Fire hurts, Izuku, she said, her voice devoid of the coddling warmth she had used for 14 years. That mother was gone, replaced by the matriarch of a dead clan. You chose to hold the torch. Now you must learn not to drop it when the handle gets hot. This was the duality of his existence now. By day, he was molded by the symbol of peace. By night, he was tempered by the last guardian. Month 1, the foundation of ash. Dagoba Municipal Beach Park was a graveyard of consumption. It was a monument to humanity's wastefulness, a sprawling, rusted coastline of discarded appliances, tires, and broken dreams. The hero course is not for the frail. All Might shouted. He was sitting atop a rusted refrigerator, wearing a button-down shirt that flapped in the sea breeze. He was in his skeletal form, looking like a scarecrow dictating orders to a tractor. You have the spirit, young Midoriya. But your body is a twig. If you ignite that engine of yours without a chassis to support it, you will blow your transmission. Do you understand the car metaphors? Yes, sir. Izuku grunted. He was currently trying to drag a truck tire through the sand with a rope tied around his waist. He wasn't allowed to use his energy. This was purely anaerobic conditioning. The Solaris power relies on density. All Might lectured, reading from a notebook Inko had given him. Muscle density acts as an insulator. The thicker the muscle fibers, the more heat they can absorb and dissipate. You need to become a radiator, my boy. A muscular radiator, Izuku pulled. The rope dug into his shoulders. His legs burned. My mom said. I need to eat. 6,000 calories a day, Izuku wheezed. Minimum. All Might cheered. And protein. Oceans of protein. Now, haul that tire to the waterline and back. And smile. You're cleaning the world. Izuku forced a grimace that might have been a smile. The physical training was exhausting, but it was straightforward. Lift heavy things. Run until you vomit. Eat until you're sick. Sleep like the dead. The spiritual training, however, was a nightmare. Every evening, after the beach, Izuku would return to the apartment. The windows were blacked out. The seal was active, dampening sound and energy signatures. Sit, Inko commanded. Izuku sat in the center of the room, cross-legged. Ignite. Izuku closed his eyes. He found the hum in his gut. He pulled on the thread of light. His skin began to glow. A soft, golden luminescence radiated from his pores. Hold it, Inko said. She was walking around him, a wooden shurnai, kendo sword, floating by her side. Do not let it flare. Do not let it dim. Keep the lumen count steady at 500. It's slippery, Izuku gritted out. The energy wanted to explode. It wanted to be a laser or a bomb. Keeping it as a gentle glow required immense mental focus. Thwack. The shurnai rapped his shoulder. You flared, Inko noted. You got frustrated. Emotion fuels the fire, Izuku. Anger makes it hot. Fear makes it erratic. You must find the white void. Total neutrality. That's impossible. Izuku snapped, his glow spiking into a blinding flash. I'm not a robot, thwack. And that is why you are burning, Inko said calmly. The Solaris were warriors, yes. But they were also monks. If you fight with rage, you will incinerate yourself before you reach the enemy. Again, Izuku groaned, resetting his breathing. It was monotonous. It was painful. But slowly, imperceptibly, the foundation was being laid. The ash of his weakness was being swept away, revealing the iron beneath. Month 3, the classroom of silence. Aldera Junior High had become a strange place for Izuku. Before the awakening, school was a minefield. He walked with his head down, flinching at loud noises, terrified of Bakugo's explosions and the laughter of his classmates. But something had shifted. It wasn't that the bullying stopped. It was that Izuku simply didn't receive it. He sat at his desk, staring at his notebook. It wasn't hero analysis anymore. The title on the cover read Solaris Physiology, Thermal Regulation and Output Logs. He was sketching diagrams of his own circulatory system, hypothesizing how to use his veins as cooling ducts. Oh, Deku! The desk rattled. A hand slammed down, popping with small explosions. Izuku didn't jump. He didn't look up immediately. He finished his sentence. Vascular dilation is key to rapid cooling, and then slowly raised his eyes. Katsuki Bakugo stood there, his red eyes narrowed. Behind him, his lackey snickered. You've been weird lately, Bakugo growled. You're tired. You smell like garbage and burnt copper. What are you plotting? I'm training, Kaken, Izuku said quietly. Training? Bakugo scoffed. Training for what? To be a corkless punching bag? Or did you finally decide to take that swan dive? The old Izuku would have stuttered. He would have waved his hands and tried to explain. The new Izuku just felt the hum. It reacted to the threat. His body temperature spiked. The air around him shimmered, a visible heat haze rising from his collar. It wasn't an attack, it was a biological warning, like a rattlesnake shaking its tail. Bakugo flinched. He pulled his hand back as if he'd touched a hot stove. He looked at his palm, confused. It was red. You. Bakugo stared at him. For a second he saw it. The faint, golden ring around Izuku's pupils. What the hell are you? I'm just studying, Izuku said, the heat receding as he calmed himself. Go sit down, Kaken. Class is starting. The class went silent. Nobody told Bakugo to sit down. Bakugo stood there, his face cycling through confusion, rage, and something akin to hesitation. Finally, Hitsuke kicked Izuku's desk and stalked off to his seat. Don't think you're looking down on me, you nerd, Bakugo muttered, but there was no bite in it. He was unsettled. The pebble on the side of the road had suddenly become a boulder, and Bakugo didn't know how to kick it anymore. Month 5, the breakthrough and the burn. The rainy season hit Mizurufu hard. Dagoba Beach was a sludge of wet sand and slippery metal. Today, we integrate. All Might announced, holding a large umbrella. You have built the muscle. You have practiced the meditation. Now we combine them. Movement with emission. Izuku stood in the rain, shirtless. The water hissed as it hit his skin, turning into steam instantly. He looked like a titan in the making, his muscles defined, his posture solid. The target is that truck chassis. All Might pointed to a rusted pickup truck about 50 meters away. I want you to sprint, jump, and fire a precision beam midair. Land in a roll. Do not lose momentum. Got it, Izuku breathed. He took off. The sand flew behind him. He hit a ramp made of plywood and launched himself into the air. Focus. Channel the heat to the right hand. Lock onto the target. He extended his arm. Solaris Ray. A beam of golden light erupted from his palm. It was powerful, too powerful. The recoil in midair threw off his balance. The beam sliced the truck in half, but Izuku spun out of control. He crashed into a pile of scrap metal. Sharp edges tore at his skin. Young Midoriya! All Might dropped the umbrella and ran over. Izuku scrambled up, adrenaline pumping. I'm okay. I can do it again. I just used too much output. Look at your arm, All Might said, his voice grave. Izuku looked down. His right arm, from the elbow to the fingertips, was black. Not bruised. Charred. The skin had cracked. Glowing orange fissures pulsated beneath the blackened tissue. It looked like cooling lava. The pain didn't hit him instantly. It waited for the adrenaline to fade. Then, it hit him like a scream. Aya! Izuku fell to his knees, clutching his wrist. The smell was horrific. Burning meat. Medical kit! Now! All Might yelled, though he was the only one there. He grabbed the emergency cooler Inko had packed. Later that night, the apartment was silent. Izuku lay on the sofa, his arm encased in a gel-filled stasis sleeve Inko had created using a mix of modern medicine and old clan herbal remedies. Inko sat in the armchair across from him. She wasn't angry. She looked defeated. We are pushing too fast, she whispered. The tissue cannot regenerate fast enough. If you burn the nerve endings, Izuku, you will lose the hand. Not just the power. The hand? I can't stop, Izuku mumbled, his voice thick with painkillers. The exam is in 5 months. I have to be ready. You won't make it to the exam if you have no limbs. Inko snapped, tears finally spilling over. This is what I feared. The Solaris fire consumes everything. Even its master. Mrs. Midoriya, All Might's voice came from the hallway. He had stayed, hovering anxiously by the door. May I come in? Inko nodded. All Might walked in. He looked at the boy's charred arm. He looked at the mother's terrified face. He needs a regulator, All Might said. He is trying to throttle a jet engine with his bare hands. He needs a nozzle.